Longest game, a game played on March 24, 1936, between the Detroit Red Wings and the Montreal Maroons, holds the record for one of the longest games in NHL history. After regular time and 5 overtime periods, the game finally concluded during the 6th overtime period, lasting a total of 116 minutes and 30 seconds. Maurice Richard, the legacy of his iconic playoff performances. When it comes to legendary NHL players, one name that stands out above the rest is Maurice Richard. Known as the Rocket, Richard was known for his unmatched speed, scoring ability, and physical style of play. However, it was his performances in the playoffs that solidified his status as one of the greatest hockey players of all time. Richard played his entire 18-year career with the Montreal Canadiens, where he won 8 Stanley Cups and scored 544 goals. But it was in the playoffs where he truly shined. His clutch performances in crucial moments helped lead the Canadiens to many of their Stanley Cup victories, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest playoff performers in NHL history. Richard's playoff heroics are best exemplified in the 1951 Stanley Cup playoffs. In the semifinal series against the Boston Bruins, Richard scored a hat trick in Game 2 to lead the Canadiens to a 3-1 victory. In Game 7, with the series tied at 3 games apiece, Richard scored the game-winning goal in overtime to send the Canadiens to the Stanley Cup final. In the final against the Toronto Maple Leafs, Richard scored 7 goals in 5 games to lead the Canadiens to their 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup victory. His dominant performance in the playoffs earned him the Conn Smythe Trophy as the most valuable player. But Richard's playoff success was not limited to one season. Throughout his career, he consistently delivered when it mattered most. In 1944, Richard scored 5 goals in a single playoff game against the Detroit Red Wings, a record that still stands to this day. In 1958, Richard scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in overtime against the Boston Bruins, further solidifying his reputation as a clutch performer. Richard's impact on the game of hockey extended beyond his on-ice performance. As one of the first French-Canadian superstars in the NHL, Richard inspired a generation of players to follow in his footsteps. His fiery passion and dedication to the game endeared him to fans across Canada and helped grow the popularity of hockey in Quebec. In addition to his on-ice success, Richard also left a lasting legacy off the ice. He was a fierce advocate for player rights and was instrumental in forming the NHL Players Association. Richard's efforts paved the way for future generations of players to secure fairer contracts and better working conditions. Despite retiring over 50 years ago, Richard's impact on the game of hockey is still felt today. His name lives on in the Maurice Richard Trophy, awarded annually to the NHL's leading goal scorer. His legacy as a playoff performer continues to inspire players to elevate their game when it matters most. In conclusion, Maurice Richard will forever be remembered as one of the greatest playoff performers in NHL history. His tenacity, skill, and passion for the game set him apart from his peers and solidified his status as a true legend of the sport. As we continue to celebrate his legacy, we can only hope that future generations of players will strive to emulate his greatness on and off the ice.